What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. One that I'm particularly interested in because it's a Hinderer, and you guys all know I'm a huge Hinderer fan. This is a Hinderer Jurassic, but not just any Hinderer Jurassic. It's actually the new Tri-Way Jurassic. Very recent release from Mr. Rick Hinderer. For those of you who don't know what the Tri-Way is, it's that symbol that I showed there on the flipper tab that allows you to switch out the internal hardware, the internal pivot hardware, between nylon, phosphor bronze, and bearings. It actually comes with all three. It's very easy to take apart and switch out, so you can get, whatever your preference is. This knife was provided for review by my buddy Scott Whittington over at USA Made Blade. You can check them out here. Let me close it on the website at usamadeblade.com. In fact, I will actually link this exact knife. It'll be the very first link at the top of my description. It'll take you right to USA Made Blade. So if you've never shopped with them, you should, because they have, as you could guess, a massive variety of USA Made blades, including a ton of Hinderers. So please check them out. Thanks so much for providing this knife for review, Scott. I appreciate it. Anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. This is actually the first, so I unboxed this the other day. It's the first time I've ever handled a Jurassic, despite being a huge Hinderer fan. I've got a gigantic playlist of all the Hinderer knives that have ever been shown on the channel. So I urge you to check that out if you're a Hinderer guy or gal. Overall length coming in under 8 inches. That really surprises me. I thought for sure it would be 8 inches. 7.75. And then we have a 3-point... You could call it 3.5 if you're going by down here. If you're going by up there, you're looking at 3 1/4. And then your cutting edge is just shy of 3 1/4. Interesting size. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1's coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see there it's a little smaller than the Rat 1. A little shorter anyway. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2's coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. This is the most like comparison. Oftentimes, the Ritter Hogue serves as such an excellent size comparison because it's kind of right there in the sweet spot of a lot of knives that I review. I kind of gravitate towards knives of this size, so this is always a good size. If you enjoy the Ritter Hogue or knives that are similar in size to the Benchmade Griptilian, the Jurassic is going to be in a sweet spot for you. How about the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7 1/4 inches overall. I'm going to do a size comparison of a knife that you guys don't yet know that I have, because I think by the time you watch this, I technically will not have unboxed this yet. I don't know. It's weird pre-recording stuff. How about up against a Hinderer 3-inch? The Hinderer 3-inch, actually, I don't know what the 3-inch comes in at. The 3-inch comes in at 7 inches, almost exactly 7 inches. So there it is up against the 3-inch for those of you who are curious. And then I also, of course, have my Hinderer XM18. So I know a lot of you are curious, how does it stack up against the XM18? XM18's just a little bit longer. It's about a 1/2 inch longer at 8 1/4 inches. But I got to be honest, it still feels like very full-size knife to me. So, I mean, in my mind, I thought, well, Jurassic's probably 8 inches. Trivial difference between that and the Hinderer XM18. In hand, it does feel like a trivial difference, but when you measure it out, it's a full 1/2 inch shorter. So, interesting. How about carry profile? Carry profile on this guy is, it's a Hinderer, so, I mean, you could call it thick. I mean, it is. It's fairly thick. I'm not going to say it's like a brick. This isn't a Medford, but it's still thicker than the Para 3, right? It does have a flipper tab, but because of this area right here that's cut out, as it's hanging in your pocket, this doesn't protrude as much as it would if this scale, right? If this cutout wasn't here, if the scale came all the way out and then the flipper tab protruded exactly this distance from there. Does that make sense? So it's got kind of the same thing that the Hinderer Eclipse has got going on, where it's got that cutout and it kind of makes the flipper tab not quite as prominent. In terms of height, I mean, we're not looking at anything crazy versus two knives that have awkward carry profiles like the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3. So, I mean, truthfully, in the pocket, I'm used to carrying knives like the Jurassic. And the way that it sits in my pocket, I think it's just fine. I will point out that Hinderers always curiously come tip down, and they're flippers. I don't like that. I think all flippers should be tip up, but it's got positions, you know, for right-handed people, tip up or tip down. Either way, while you're carrying it, I don't find that it's really obtrusive at all. So in fact, I dare say it's a little bit easier to carry than the Hinderer XM18. Certainly will be bigger and heavier than a lot of people prefer. If you're venturing into Hinderer knives and you enjoy medium to large size knife, then this knife is certainly not gonna, you know, it's not gonna ruin anything for you. It's not gonna be a massive shock, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Let's go ahead and weigh it. So what are we looking at for materials here? We are looking at G10, a titanium liner and a titanium frame lock side. I'm almost certain that the thickness on the Jurassic is the same as the XM. It should be about 165 thousandths. Yeah, well, 161. Mine's off a little bit, but I'm going to guess it's about the same as the XM18. In fact, I'll give you guys a look here. Yep, looks to be exactly the same, but it's a little bit shorter. So, okay, 5.4. I think it weighs about exactly the same. Oh, it's probably because of the little HMBS back there, giving it a little bit of extra weight. So there you go. This is a heavier knife. That's certainly not going to be something that a lot of people like. I tend to carry knives between 4 and 6.5 ounces, so this is very normal for me. If you're used to carrying knives like the Bug Out or the Para 3 Lightweight, and you wear a very, like tight pants or very thin pant material, this may not be for you, especially if you're wearing athletic shorts every day. You wear jeans, you wear heavy duty, pants, things like that. Yeah, it's not going to bother you. So there you go. Next up, how's the action? I should have done that a second ago. The action's phenomenal, but all tri-ways have excellent action. I still, every now and then, have people saying, I heard Hinderers don't flip. I heard they run on nylon washers. And, that's okay, because like some people, the last look that they gave Hinderer was 2 or 3 years ago, and that was the case. That has been solved completely. Hinderers all have excellent action. They all have excellent detent. This is very nearly fall shut, very smooth. I would say medium to medium heavy. Easy to do a push button switch, easy to do a light switch. I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's actually more comfortable than the XM18 because of the landing zone back here. You do not have this sea of dead cactuses, barbed wire, and landmines to run your finger into. I'm being sarcastic there, but yeah, the XM18 gets uncomfortable to flip after a little bit. This is nice and smooth, and yeah, you can do this all day. There's no double clutch. It's very, as far as like the modern titanium frame lock flipper goes with bearings, this is right there with it. Anybody who loves, the best titanium frame lock flippers out there, the most popular ones right now, the most fidget friendly, you're going to love this one as well. Let's go ahead and check hardware on this guy. I know I usually do that a little bit later. I'm going to do that a little bit earlier this time because this is interesting. I'm going to try and get this correct. I try to keep track of all the Hinderer's hardware and what's modular with what. So while the Jurassic's screws look to be the same as the XM18, they're actually not. The XM18 has a hex head, and it's actually going to be, I've actually got a Hinderer armorer's tool here. The head that comes with the armorer's tool is what will fit the XM18, and it's this hex head right here. Now, for the Jurassic and for, I think, the MP1, the Half Track, and the Eclipse, they're actually using Torx. Let's go ahead and try. I'm going to get out my handy dandy WIA bit selector and WIA magnetic driver, right? Because these are expensive. They're cool, right? The magnetic driver for the Hinderer armorer's tool, yeah, it's cool, but it's really expensive. This is way less expensive. It's a 1/4-inch magnetic bit driver, and this is also very inexpensive. You can find both of these items by opening up the description right here. And you can check out my Amazon store, and then you can find all of your favorite knife brands, and then some other stuff, like my recommended knives, budget knives, knife storage, things like that. But you can go into knife maintenance and you can see they're right there. You can pick them up. And while you're there, you can browse through and see all of the other really cool categories that I have. You're sure to find something down there. Just scratch an itch. Anyways, let's go ahead and check this. I'm going to guess, I'm almost 100% certain that those are T8. I'm going to be very careful here as I check. No, you know what? Oh God, am I about to say something negative about a Hinderer knife? I think those might be T6. Okay, let's give her a shot here. Come on now. You know what? Are they T7? How weird. If they maybe they are. Come on, camera. What are we doing here? Taking a day off? All right. Let's give this a shot. I just wanna check and see here real quick. Nope. Okay, they're T6. So the Jurassics, and I guess that means the other knives. And I've maybe I knew that and I just blocked it out because I'm such a hardcore Hinderer fan that I'm like, nope. No, apparently those are T6. You guys know my feelings on T6. I don't like T6, but that's generally because it's easy to strip the bit and it's easy to strip the head of the screw if you're applying too much torque. If you're careful, it's okay. It's like I always say, it's not a deal breaker. It's something that you should be cognizant of if you plan on taking your knives apart. And Hinderer knives are very friendly when it comes to taking them apart. The warranty is very good. They go back together very easily. I can say that because I have done it so many times that I feel like I could do it blindfolded with XM18s and stuff like that. Taking a look back here. Oh, wait, we were just going over hardware, right? We still have to talk about the anatomy of the knife. We're 11 minutes in. Hinderer videos are always long on this channel. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy here. So we're looking at G10 texturing that is very similar to what you see on Hinderer XM18s. Now, the one that I've got there has a titanium scale, but what they come with, let's see if I can find my standard scale. What they come with is just a G10 scale with that same texturing. It's almost like a more aggressive golf ball texturing, right? There's the standard scale for my XM. Now, the Jurassics originally came with this sort of reptilian, almost like, you know, well, it was like a T-Rex scale, right? And that's, I mean, it added some interesting charm to it. It was texturing, but to me, it kind of looked a little corny, right? Some people really liked it, and there were some really cool custom ones, right? I'm not coming down on anybody who liked it. To me, it looked a little bit corny. They went back to the standard texturing, which is just right. It's not super grippy, but it's also not like slippery. It's just right, and it looks good. And I'm really glad that they did that, because I got to be honest. The first time I saw the Jurassic, I was like, that is a weird, you know, that has some weird lines. You know, I was used to the Hinderer XM18. And to me, this has better, the XM18 has better aesthetic lines. This had some weird lines. But from what I learned about knives like the PM2 and the Para 3 is to not judge the knife for its outward appearance. Because oftentimes an awkward profile yields better ergonomics. Or the reason for the awkward profile is to emphasize better working ergos. And let me tell you something, that is 100% the case here. I had always assumed, I mean, I'll be honest, it's because I had heard a lot of people say that, but yeah, this thing is absolutely, this is the most comfortable Hinderer knife that I have ever handled. It honestly, when I pick up my XM18, and I still love it, but I'm like, ugh. Have you ever like, you know, those of you who drive 4x4 pickups, right? You're driving it, right? And then you have a buddy or you have a friend or maybe you have a loaner from a dealership for a while and they give you a luxury car or a luxury SUV and the suspension is like super soft and you get used to it and then you go back to your truck and it's like, you know, and it's like a county fair roller coaster. That's what it feels like going back to my Hinderer after playing with this, because this big hump back here, it kind of looks like a T-Rex, right? This big hump back here, it feels the palm and in your thumb, it's like organically knows to just fall and lay right here in this area. And then these spots right here to lay your index and middle finger. I mean, everything is so nice. It's just buttery, sort of just setting into a mold. That's what it feels like. Wonderful ergonomics, 10 out of 10. On these new ones, we've got a slicer grind, and that is pretty cool. I'm going to urge you guys again to go to USA Made Blade to check out this slicer grind, because the originals were spear points. So we have a knife that is substantially more performance oriented in terms of general hand positioning and ergonomics, coupled with the fact that it has arguably the most performance oriented blade shape. the slicer grind. I've always said that. I think that the slicer is probably the best in terms of performance. And then it's also sporting CPM 20 CV, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a first for the Jurassic line. So this is very much, and if Steve's watching, Super Steel Steve, he ended up not purchasing a different Hinderer and going with a Jurassic after he saw my unboxing. Because I feel like he's kind of got an eye for stuff like that. You know, blade geometry mixed with better ergonomics. I mean, this was kind of more his thing. So I'm telling you guys, for those of you who are big into like maximizing the performance of your knife and you're looking into Hinderer knives, this one's really, it's going to be a major competitor in that category. Absolutely. You can see there, everything's been nicely rounded off in this tumbled finish. As usual, you'll be able to get this knife in a wide variety of different finishes. You'll have black stonewash, this stonewash, you'll have working finish, you'll have DLC, and probably they do the flat dark earth. I love it when they do the bronze and flat dark earth finish. It's always really cool. Just beautiful. The blade came out flawless. Every single one of these tri-ways that I've handled has just had, I mean, the edge is just absolutely perfect. There's no variation, you know, no wonkiness. We don't have part of the grind, you know, taller or shorter. It's just perfect. The stone washing looks great. Plenty of thickness being carried out to a reasonably stout tip while still, you know, allowing puncture performance. So, I mean, all the way around, that blade shape is just awesome. Nice functional jimping up top, so you really can bear down on the knife if you want to, but it just feels very, very comfortable. There is no double clutch. I think I mentioned that. Lots of room to disengage the lock bar. I mean, this feels very organic. I'm not going to say that it's necessarily, you know, the one thing that holds me back from, you know, the XM18 is just this landing zone right here. I mean, both of these knives are great, you know, for flipping over and over again. The other thing that I like is that there is no aggressive jimping on the flipper tab. This starts to hurt after a little bit. A while, it takes a little bit, right? And it's very pointy up here. This is not so much the case. Let me see if I can demonstrate there. It's much more rounded off than on the XM18 in all areas. So this does not get uncomfortable at all. This gets uncomfortable after a little bit. So that's another big plus. Moving down to the handle scales. Oh, by the way, this has the same, you know, the studs act as the external stops. And yes, you can absolutely do the reverse flick and the forward flick. So I've had people ask me like, I bought a Hinderer and I watched your video and you can do this thumb flick and you can do the reverse flick and I cannot do it. Is there something wrong with my knife? I am 99% sure, because I've had people message me that before. I'm 99% sure there's nothing wrong with your knives, guys. These Hinderers, they're different from other thumb stud openers because of the positioning of the thumb studs. Remember, their primary purpose is external stops. So their positioning is not optimal for opening the knife. And that means you can't push up. It's actually more out. See what my thumb did there? Same thing with the reverse flick, right? You're actually pushing it more this way, and you're overcoming a really heavy detent. So if your hands and your fingers aren't conditioned to doing that, it's just not going to do it. On top of that, you really have to be careful you're not putting excess pressure on the lock bar. That's usually the problem. But the reason I say that is because I've handled so many Hinderers in the last 2 years, and I've never had one where the detent was so strong that I couldn't open it. It was more about the position that I was pushing it. So anyways, where were we at here? There's no sharp edge. I mean, this is all knocked down. That's the way Hinderers have been for a while. They really don't have any issues with unnecessary sharp edges or anything. We have technically two standoffs. We have this pre-installed HMBS system, which is HMBS stands for Hinderer Modular Backspacer. I think the original platform was the MP1, which literally stands for Modular Platform 1. Didn't quite take off on that platform, but I think they're trying to make it happen with the Jurassic, and I think the Jurassic's a better platform for it. So eventually you'll be able to buy modular backspacers that include things like bottle openers and lanyard loops and whatever. You know, you can switch out the backspacers and you can make a secondary tool, whatever is available by Hinderer, you know, your choice, right? Different than the Hinderer XM18, we actually have screws on both sides, whereas the Hinderer XM18 goes into a Chicago screw. I believe these actually screw right into the standoffs. I'm okay with either design. I think that's fine. You have the filler tab situation here, so you can switch the pocket clip. I would recommend on this with a flipper that you would go tip up. That way you're not carrying the knife with the flipper up against the back seam of your pants, right? So if you accidentally run into something and it does this, it might go into your leg. If you've got this up against the back seam of your pants, it's not going to open, which is why I recommend the pocket clip on this side. These do, of course, have the steel lock bar insert doubling as the over travel stop. And then it has a secondary lock bar stabilizer that also doubles as an over travel stop, but also stabilizes the lock bar from moving this way. So that's cool. Locking up very early at about 25%. No blade play up, down, left, or right. That's everybody knows that's a Hinderer knife. And it is perfectly centered. So let's go over the stuff that I don't like one more time. It has T6 screws. Guys, I know you're like, but you're a Hinderer fan. You're not going to say anything bad about him. Guys, I know Hinderers are not for everybody, right? Here's two glaring issues that are like, not everybody's going to be able to accept. Number one, it's 5.4 ounces. That's well over the mark, right? A lot of people have this. I'll tell you where this comes from. It comes from Nut and Fancy. And not that he's wrong. He has this sort of like, he wants everything to be under 4 ounces, right? And as much cutting edge as he can get. And then I think Nick Shabazz, really kind of pushed the whole ounce and inch thing, where it could go beyond that, depends on how much blade you're getting. Whatever standard you go by, right? 5.4 ounces, I think, is more, not universally, but it's more universally considered. That doesn't make sense. It's considered by a larger population to be on the heavier side. How about that? So I get that, right? It's simply going to be too big for some people. T6, blah, no big deal. Here's the biggest thing that's going to hold people back from buying it. Hinderers are expensive. Now, Hinderers are made 100% in the United States. Is there a difference between like this knife and say a ZT, right? A really high-end US production knife, or maybe some of the higher-end Chinese production knives, right? That run between $200 and $300. They're really, really nice. But I can tell you, after handling dozens and dozens and dozens of those types of knives, and at the same time now, well over 30 Hinderers, having owned something 25, 26 myself, yeah, there is a difference. You are paying for additional quality. You're paying for additional attention to detail. You are paying for hand fitment of items that were made in-house, all of the items, even the screws, right? And then everything is checked over. I mean, there's a card that comes in the box that says, here, I'll pull this one out. It actually tells you which of their employees hand assembled it, right? Each one comes with that. And it's not the same person every time. These are checked. And I can tell you, I can vouch for this, they get it right. Now, there's every production line, has its errors, I mean, they are not 100% without flaw, but in my experience, it's like, wow, every single one is just awesome. So the $425 that you're going to pay for this does go towards performance and quality. Does everybody need a $425 knife? No. The people that I'm genuinely speaking to are people who have sort of graduated up into this point where they're like, I've experienced high-end production. I think I want to go up to the next tier. Should I be looking at Hinderer knives? And if so, is the Jurassic a good knife to start with? Yes. For those people, yes. In fact, I mean, I always pointed people towards the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch first. And then if they didn't need that big of a knife, I said maybe try the 3-inch or the half track. Now I'm going to throw the Jurassic in there. Those are the 4 best models to start with. And there's a really good case for starting with the Jurassic. The Jurassic will give people a really good first impression of Hinderer knives. Very performance-oriented blade, very fidget-friendly, very tough, very strong. I mean, just incredibly well made, easy to take apart, easy to put back together, right? Very versatile. And then on top of that, like all other Hinderer models, they're modular with a ton of customizable parts. So you can build what you want, right? Order one with this scale, if you're like, well, all they've got is stone washed with green. All right, well, when you get it, if you don't mind spending some extra money, you can get the scale color you want. And then you can get some custom hardware, custom pocket clip, whole bunch of stuff. Bling it out, get what you want. Really, really cool. I do need to point out, though, if you really are going after one of those specific ones, part of the reason it's a good idea to buy from USA Made Blade is because they're the only dealer online retailer that I know of that is authorized by Rick Hinderer to do custom anno work and then sell it as new. The stuff that Scott does, like his Animascus and his Stars and Stripes and the We the People, those custom anodizing jobs and laser jobs, it is so amazing. And the knives, obviously it's done professionally, so you don't have to worry about fitment or any blemishes or anything after they do their work. It really looks incredible. So if you're looking for something unique, right? Maybe you're looking for a unique Jurassic, you will find stuff like that at USA Made Blade. Can I recommend this knife? Yes. It's I mean, even though it's really expensive, that's not going to be for everybody, but yeah, if you've got the money, you know, you're looking at a knife of this size, you like something a little heavier, you're maybe looking into Hinderer and you're wanting to know, is this a good one to start with? Yeah, I can definitely recommend it to you. This is going to go on my most recommended knives playlist as well as my Hinderer playlist. So if you haven't checked either of those out, please do. Like I said, check out my links, but make sure you go to USA Made Blade, right? If you've never been there. That's going to be pretty much it for today's review, guys. This was a long one, but I can't not make my Hinderer reviews long. I really enjoy them. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.